Hello, fellow educators. My name is Catherine Everett Shaw. I am a Regional Support Specialist with the Ohio Department of Education. I would like to thank you for taking the time to view this PowerPoint. First, I want to let you know that this PowerPoint is intended to share information around the revised draft Ohio Teacher Evaluation System and contains information that may be used to assist districts and community schools in their decision-making process around the OTES pilot for the 2019-2020 school year. Be mindful that information shared is in draft format and may be revised further based on feedback from the piloting districts in the fall and others. Second, please know that we at the department are happy to help you if you have more questions about the pilot or the revised draft OTES after viewing this PowerPoint. At the end of the slide deck, I've noted the email for the evaluation mailbox. Feel free to reach out to us if you have a need. With the passage of new legislation and Educator Standards Board recommendations, the Ohio Teacher Evaluation System is changing. To begin the transition to the revised OTES, the department carried out a prototype during the 2018-2019 school year. This prototype provided valuable feedback to help refine the draft OTES. This coming school year, 2019-2020, the department will implement a pilot open to all districts and community schools across the state. This pilot will help garner additional feedback to further refine the draft OTES. Full implementation of the new system will begin in 2020-2021. Please note that the teacher evaluation system remains unchanged for the upcoming school year of 2019-2020 for all non-piloting schools. There's also no change to the Ohio Principal Evaluation System or the Ohio School Counselor Evaluation System. OTES was always intended to be a growth model. With the revised draft OTES, we're renewing that emphasis on growth. The changes put in place in the new system will help to focus the process on professional growth. The original framework that called for a 50-50 split between teacher performance and student growth measures is no longer in place. Along with that, the alternative framework that allowed local use of alternative components such as student portfolios and teacher self-evaluations is no longer in place either. High-quality student data is now being used in place of student growth measures, and the use of that high-quality student data is embedded in the Teacher Performance Rubric. High-quality student data will be covered in greater detail in upcoming slides. Revised OTES still requires 2 formal observations and at least 2 walkthroughs. These observations will now be focused to support growth. I will explain more about that later. There is no longer a need to categorize teachers as A, B, or C in the revised OTES. Last, ETPES will be replaced with a new evaluation platform known as Ohio ES or OES. OES is intended to be an updated, more user-friendly evaluation portal. Some things have not changed with the revised OTES, such as who should be evaluated. Teachers that must be evaluated under OTES include any person employed under a teaching license and any teacher who spends at least 50% of the time employed providing student instruction. Like the previous slide, this is not a change in the revised OTES. There are circumstances when districts may choose not to evaluate a teacher. This includes a teacher who has been approved for retirement by December 1, a teacher who's been on leave at least 50% of the year, one who instructs less than 50% of their time employed, or one who is participating in RESA for the first time. The Educator Standards Board has been a driving force in the revised draft OTES. This recommending body collaboratively promotes educator quality, professionalism, and public accountability on behalf of the students and citizens of Ohio. Some of their recommendations include a need to update the OTES rubric, embed student growth measures in the form of high-quality student data in the revised rubric, and embed alternative components, such as teacher self-evaluations and student surveys, as sources of evidence in the revised rubric. Other recommendations from the Educator Standards Board include tailoring observations to meet the needs of teachers in order to focus more on improvement and growth, and I'll talk more on that in a few moments, and also providing a professional growth process for teachers rated accomplished and skilled. Ohio Revised Code 3319.111 and 112 brought more changes to the revised draft OTES. I'll talk more about those changes in the following slides. 3319.111 requires that by July 1 of 2020, districts have to update their teacher evaluation policy to conform to the revised OTES framework, and we'll talk more about the framework momentarily. And 111 also says that measures of high quality student data must be used in teacher evaluations. 3319.111 also calls out the less frequent evaluation cycle for teachers rated skilled and accomplished. Districts still have the option of fully evaluating these teachers once every 3 years if they're rated accomplished, and once every 2 years if they're rated skilled. Teachers rated accomplished must have a self-directed professional growth plan. They have to have one observation and one conference, and during that conference there must be a discussion about their progress on their professional growth plan, because in order for a teacher to remain on the less frequent evaluation cycle when the revised OTES is implemented, or if you pilot it, the teacher must show progress on the professional growth plan. Skilled teachers have to have a jointly developed professional growth plan. They also need one observation, one conference during which there must be a discussion about their growth on their professional growth plan, and they too must show progress on the goals on the professional growth plan. It doesn't say they must acquire or attain the goals on their professional growth plan, but they must show progress toward the goal to remain on the less frequent evaluation cycle. 3319.112 states that the framework has to include at least 2 measures of high quality student data to provide evidence of student learning, and that high quality student data must be attributable to the teacher, and it must include value added when applicable and one other measure of high quality student data. This last piece means that if you have a teacher who has 2 value added measures, then she or he cannot use, say, their reading value added for one high quality student data piece and the math for the other high quality student data piece, because the law states you must include value added and one other measure of high quality student data. Law also prohibits shared attribution. It prohibits the use of student learning objectives, and it states that a professional growth plan or an improvement plan needs to be based on the results of evaluation if prior evaluation data is available, and those plans must be aligned to any building or district improvement plan. Let me take a few moments to talk about the draft framework and the draft model. The draft model is a larger document that is multiple pages long. The model contains guidance, document templates, and recommended best practices that may be followed in the OTES process. For example, the model discusses the value of holding a pre-conference before each formal observation. This is recommended practice, therefore, not required practice, because it's in the model. The draft framework is a shorter document, less than 2 pages, that includes the components and procedures that must be followed. The components identified in the framework must be used, and the procedures discussed in the framework must be followed. The following slides denote information included in the framework and are, therefore, required as part of the evaluation process. The draft framework states that a teacher's final holistic rating is based on a combination of observations and the use of district-determined high-quality student data that adheres to the state guidelines. This means that the high-quality student data used at the local level is decided upon locally. Our only requirement is that the high-quality student data that is approved by the locals meet the guidelines set forth by the state, and I'll go over those guidelines shortly. The framework states that the required components of a full evaluation still include 2 formal observations of at least 30 minutes each and at least 2 classroom walkthroughs of less than 30 minutes. Revised OTES does shift the focus for these observations, though. The first formal observation is to be a holistic observation. This means that during the first observation, the evaluator is considering all of the domains and indicators on the entire teacher performance rubric. He or she is trying to gather as much evidence as they can for each domain to try to build a whole picture of the teacher being evaluated. This first holistic observation must be followed by a conference. The purpose of this conference is for the evaluator to determine and share which area or areas they have selected to be the focus for growth for the teacher under evaluation. The walkthroughs that take place after the first holistic observation are to be focused on the specific area or areas identified for growth. This does not mean that only evidence around the identified focus area can be collected. Rather, it means that the majority of the evidence gathered should be on the focus area in order to ensure that the teacher is receiving the proper support for growth to occur. The second formal observation is a formal focused observation. It, like the walkthroughs, should be focused on gathering evidence that will support the teacher in their identified focus areas. The final required piece for teachers on a full evaluation cycle includes the summative conference. The framework states that high-quality student data can be used as evidence in any component of the evaluation. The draft high-quality student data tool or guidance focuses on two things. One, the instrument used by the teacher, and two, the teacher's use of the data generated from the instrument. The word instrument was intentionally selected here. The high-quality student data does not necessarily have to be a formal paper-pencil type assessment. It may be a performance task or even a well-thought-out student portfolio that demonstrates students' growth over time. The second piece of the tool stresses the teacher's use of the data. We want to ensure that teachers are using sound instruments to gather accurate data on student learning, and then they're using that data to help grow their students and their practice. The next two slides show the high-quality student data guidance. These are the criteria that must be met for instruments to be deemed high quality. The high-quality student data instrument used must have been rigorously reviewed by experts in the field of education to meet the following criteria: align to learning standards, measure what is intended to be measured, not offend or be driven by bias, be attributable to the specific teacher for the course or courses and grade level taught, demonstrate evidence of student learning, and by student learning we mean academic achievement and or growth. It must follow protocols for administration and scoring, and it must provide trustworthy results. These are the criteria that must be met around the teacher's use of the data. The teacher must use the data generated from the high-quality student data instrument by accurately reflecting upon and analyzing available data and using the information as part of an ongoing cycle of support for student learning, considering student learning needs and styles, identifying the strengths and weaknesses of an entire class as well as individual students, informing instruction by adapting instruction to meet student need based upon the information gained from the data analysis, measuring student learning, and again that's defined as achievement and or growth, and progress toward achieving state and local standards. This chart shows some of the similarities and differences between the current OTES rubric and the revised draft OTES rubric. Both the current and the revised rubrics are aligned to the Ohio Standards for the Teaching Profession. Both use the same 4 teacher performance levels of ineffective, developing, skilled, and accomplished. The current rubric has 10 domains. The revised rubric has 6. In the current rubric, student growth measures are not included because they are a separate calculation. In the revised rubric, the use of the high-quality student data is embedded within it. Currently, the rubric, the teacher performance piece of an evaluation, is 50% of an overall calculated rating for a teacher. In the revised draft OTES, there will be no calculation. The teacher's final summative or the teacher's performance rating will be based off of how they do based on the evidence gathered around the rubric itself. To request a copy of the draft rubric, please contact your regional support specialist. Their emails are listed here. Again, as stated earlier in the PowerPoint, this is only a draft form of the rubric. The Educator Standards Board is continuing to review and revise the rubric based on prototype feedback, and we will get more feedback from piloting schools in the fall that will be taken into consideration. To find more information about piloting the revised draft OTES, go to education.ohio.gov, click on the teacher evaluation page, and you'll see these 2 boxes. You can click the green to see current OTES or the blue to see the pilot program. Within the pilot program page, You will find the intent to participate form that has some assurances listed on it, and another document, 10 things you need to know if you're going to pilot the revised OTES in 2019-2020. Both of those can be very helpful to you. If you're interested in piloting, this slide shows some of the requirements. The first is that the intent to participate form is due by June 1. The pilot is open to all districts and community schools across the state. All teachers within your district or community school who are subject to OTES must participate in the pilot using the revised draft OTES. There's a new evaluation portal, Ohio ES, that will replace ETPES for piloting schools and all schools when implementation begins in 2020. If you're going to pilot, all the information that is currently within ETPES for your district should transfer into OES without any work on your part. Evaluation data that's collected during the piloting year may be reflected on your Ohio school report card, and if a school chooses to pilot, they will be required to bring small teams to 3 regional trainings throughout the year in 2019-2020. We are available to assist you with any information you need around the pilot or the revised draft OTES process. Please reach out to us with any questions you may have. Submitted questions will be reviewed and clarification will be shared with the field through the pilot webpage.